Thank you for taking the time to watch our latest webinar. Today's session is When Questions Are the Answer. We're actually joined tonight by a guest presenter, and he's going to be leading the session for us. And this is Jon Chambers. Jon heads up Get Inspired Training here in the UK. It is a accredited Promethean Training Academy, which is out there helping to empower schools and colleges with the competence and skills needed to use the technology that they've invested in more effectively and with greater impact. So I'm really pleased to have Jon joining us today and leading the session. So I'm just going to pass you over to him to get started.
Thank you, Janice, for that kind introduction. And without further ado, I'm just going to give you a broad outline to begin with what we're going to be covering. Some people, teachers out there may have ActivExpression already in their school, college or training room. They may be collecting dust, or they may use them already but want to get some more usage out of them. But whatever the situation, today's sessions we're going to be looking at ActivExpression. It is quite a focused session in that sense. But specifically what we're going to be covering is looking at ad hoc questions where there's more like open questions where there's no correct answer, to promote discussion, to generate ideas and vocabulary from learners. We're going to be looking at prepared questions, maybe as plenaries, to check understanding of certain themes or content to move that learning forward. But also importantly, we're going to get to sort of something called self-paced questioning. And this is really the heart of the system. And this is where it gets quite exciting in the sense that students can work at their own pace, in their own time, where the questions appear on the handsets directly as opposed to the question appearing on the board. And what that means for assessment and, importantly, intervention from a teaching perspective. And once we get those results, how can we analyze them and what can we do about them as well? So hopefully it'll be quite an interesting journey. So let's move on, as we say. Right. Next slide. And I suppose the best thing to do just to start with, in terms of just positioning this particular presentation or webinar, is this is more about what you can do with the system rather than how to do it, because that would take well, quite a few hours, I think, in terms of setting it all up and sort of on-site training, so to speak. But this screenshot just shows just some of the steps that you could take in terms of, and I've done this through screenshots of maybe renaming or registering handsets for the first time, looking at through the results browser and then clicking on the hub and renaming that. And what I kind of base this on is it presupposes that most people know how to do that already, but if you don't, there's resources and help out there, and I'm happy to get in touch with people after this webinar if they wanted more help as well. So let's move on. Let's start. Okay, and when you open on the right-hand side here, and we're using Active Primary today. Obviously, Active Studio, you could do the Active Studio version you could use as well. Both features and the functionality are exactly the same, just a different look and feel. And you can see over here, when you open with your tool palette, and this is always with the standard default tool palette, you get two buttons here. And if I mouse over it, it's called the Express poll. And I kind of call this the ad hoc question poll as well, because if I click it, what happens is it jumps out into the middle, and hey, presto, here we go. And you can see exactly the same as I've got the screenshot on here. And I really wanted to just start with this particular slide because I just wanted to explain to people the types of questions that you as the teacher or the tutor or trainer could ask. And everything from text questions where you're using the handset just like a mobile phone and they're kind of almost texting the answer in, so to speak, from multiple choice questions, not just multiple choice but enhanced multiple choice as well, where there's more than one correct answer, sort in order, yes, no, true or false, or don't know. And don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer as well, by the way, because it also eliminates that guess. So if they if, for example, if they just had yes or no and they guessed yes and they got it right, how do we know they got it right, or they were just guessing? Likert scales as well over here. So confidence, for example, how confident are you, learner, in this particular topic, or how much do you agree with this particular theme? And then finally numeric as well, for lots of maths-based questions. So in other words, the teacher, you are really just, as you may have heard this expression before, only limited by imagination in terms of the types of question that can be asked as well. So I just really wanted to start with that there. And let's move on to the next page, and you can see my my express poll, my ad hoc question poll that stays on the page there. And what I've done, I thought this, the picture speaks 1,000 words, and I love this picture, and I think this could be used in a literacy context or a historical context if you're doing history as well. And I kind of sort of imagining here that I've put up my picture up, I've got my learners and they've got their handsets, and I want to know, for example, I want the lesson objective, for example, it could be about creative story writing, or just describing characters in terms of the qualities that they have and in terms of their personality or traits. And if I'm asked my little boy, who's 7 years old, he can only work in terms of things like bad or mean, and sometimes, students are limited by the vocabulary they have. So I want to help them increase their vocabulary. So I've found this picture off the internet, and you can see if I hover over, I've actually got a link embedded behind that, so we can go straight there. And I'm just going to go straight onto here. If I start over again, there you go, click on that, jumps out to the middle. If I click on that, I'm going to select A, B, C, which is a text question. What I want my learners to do is I want them to text me a word. And Janice is up there 200 miles away in Edinburgh, and she's got some handsets that are ready, so she's going to be my students today. Thank you, Janice. And I'm going to text on A, B, C, and I'm going to ask my students to text in a word to describe the character they see in front of them. What kind of character is he? Okay, and and hopefully I'll get quite a few answers back. Now, obviously, this works really quite well if you've got 20+ learners out there, because you're going to get lots and lots of different words coming up. And if I wanted to, I could add a timeout, but all my answers, all my students have answered, and straight away, as soon as all the people have answered, I get a whole load of different answers up there. And these are the results that have come up. It shows it as a horizontal bar graph, confident, cruel, or powerful. What I can do, which is quite clever, I could paste that just like that, and we could see exactly a copy of this window on the page. But what is even more effective and has better impact, I think, is if I seed the words or copy the text directly into Flipchart by clicking on this particular icon here. So I'll click on that. Can't see anything's happened at the moment because it's all gone on behind this window. So I'm just going to close this window down. And let's close that down. And can you see I've got some words up here? And I don't know how well you can see. I probably should have chosen maybe a different color background or move it to one side. But you can see the words that have been put up here. And I can also see, when I hover over the word with my mouse, I can see who sent that word in as well. It was Stephen. And also the same with here, cruel, I've got a word here as well. George sent that in. And confident. And Isabella sent that in. So there's some really great words here. And kids love to magpie off each other. So maybe Billy at the back, for example, his vocab isn't great. He can only think in terms of bad or mean. But suddenly, he's got lots of ideas put up in front of him. So when he's asked to do some creative writing, hey presto, he's got some useful words that his peers have already put up there for him, and he could use that already. And I could create a list. Maybe you've got 20 words up here, and then maybe as another exercise beyond this, we could say, well, okay, what is it in the picture that makes you think he's cruel? What makes you think he's powerful? And you could go on to how artists, or in this sense directors, use certain things in film or art to generate or try and depict certain people in certain ways. If you look at the dagger, the eye shifting to his left, the long spindly fingers, and if I were to click on the link, actually, we could go and explore a little bit more about this character, and you may have guessed it already. It is indeed, depending on the link here, is in fact who was the real Richard III, and he was in the news recently for his skeleton being found underneath a car park in Leicester, as it were. So we can go and do some exploration there. But the point is, you're getting the students to do the actual work itself. So let's go back to that particular get back to my particular flip chart, and I want to show you again, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just getting the students to generate some words onto the page. And again, we can do this with a video as well. And this is something I found on the internet a while ago. You may have seen this. It's on the news recently. But you can run a video, and you can, and using the special snapshot feature in the video, we can build up a storyboard very easily. So let's click on the video. Let's run it for a little bit. I don't know if you saw this. This absolutely amazed me. This guy here. He's called Nick Wallander. If you wanted to YouTube him, Nick N-I-K Wallander, and he did a pretty amazing thing. I don't know how good the sound is on this one, but he actually, I don't know if you can see in the background there, but there's a tightrope, and this guy walked across this steel rope between two towers in Chicago, and I wanted to ask a question here, and again using my snapshot video as well. Like it says, insert the video frame here. So by clicking on this, if I just click onto that, for example, and just pause the video there, I can there you go. I don't know how well you can see that, but what I can do is I can bring my thing out, my express poll out. Let's ask a text question. How would you feel if that was you, learners, for example? How would you feel if that was you walking across that tightrope there? What would you be feeling? Again, a really great way to generate vocabulary, get imaginations running, and really get some useful, adjectives or describing words onto the page. I can see George has already responded because his name is illuminated in yellow, and Stephen has now answered. And if I wanted to, I could give Isabella 5 seconds to answer. Otherwise we could be waiting for some time. Maybe she hasn't answered. It's up to you, but you've got a manual clock there. It says one or more users have failed to answer. Allow them to retry. Not on this occasion. Okay, I've got exhilarated and I've got terrified. Let me just copy it or paste that particular window onto there like that, for example. I don't know how well you can see that. We have a bit of a technical challenge here because ordinarily in a classroom or training room, this wouldn't be an issue for teachers, but because we're recording this webinar and we're 200 miles apart between us, I can't actually, for example, pick up and move this window, and it won't move any further. But you just have to take my word for it, it does actually work. So let's move on, because time is ticking, as they say. And I've picked up this particular flip chart page because I wanted to show you that in the resource library, which is down here, and if I click on that, it comes up to resource library, and it looks like you've got nothing in it, but if you click on this resource locations, this little black thing here, I've got loads of activities and templates, etc., 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 activities, learner response here, and there's so much stuff in the library. It's really, really good. Let's just click on that again. That I just picked out this particular topic, for example, and perhaps there we go. You can see it doesn't want to go down, does it? So what I'm going to do is just leave that there for the time being. So I found this particular page. Jan, perhaps if you could claim control and close that particular window for me, that would be helpful. But I found this particular page, and I wanted to show you that you could easily get a page from here and get a discussion going. And again, you can see animals should have the same rights as humans. But if I click on this button here, which is the design mode, I could very easily change that and put any topic in there, for example. And it says strongly agree 1, strongly disagree 5. And I'll show you how this works. So I click on this button again, my express poll, I click on here, it expands, and I choose what type of question I'd like to ask my learners. It's a like it sales question, and this time it's an agreement, as you can see. So if I click on agreement, it comes up with 1 strongly agree, 2 agree, 3 indifferent, just like you see there. So, for example, if the learner strongly agreed with the statement that animals should have the same rights as humans, they would go for 1, and all the way down across strongly disagree and go for 5, for example. And obviously, if you're having 20 or more students in the group, which is great here, for example, what I've got is a kind of a disparity or a range of different answers. So the default view when we get the vote results back, and they happen automatically once everybody has answered, otherwise you could manually time it out, as I've shown you before, is this particular view. But if I click on this button at the top where my mouse is pointed, I can actually see who's answered what as a list, for example. That's what I wanted to have a look at. And now I can see, for example, George strongly agrees, but Isabella disagrees. So what I would do is, if I just put a copy and paste that onto there, what I would do is, okay, I say to George, that's great, George. Now, can you spend the next 2 to 3 minutes in explaining to, why you feel the way you do, and perhaps persuade those that disagree, persuade them towards your point of view. I would then give Isabella the opportunity, after George has stood up and done that for 2 or 3 minutes, exactly the same opportunity, and I can ask Isabella. Maybe Isabella's one of these kids, just like my own daughter. And it's always the same. And the reason we use expression is because, one of those reasons is because when you ask a question in the class, it's always the same kids that put their hands up. It's always the same kids that don't put their hands up. Maybe Isabella's one of those kids that doesn't put her hands up. You don't know whether she's understood or not, or you don't know whether she's shy or she's a little bit nervous. But you know what? She's got an opinion, and she can express that opinion through the ActivExpression device. And her opinion on this is quite strong, and you're going to give her the floor now, so to speak, and get her to explain her opinion, and maybe again she's got the opportunity to convince or persuade those that are sitting on the fence, or maybe agree with the statement, to her type of opinion. Then what we would do after that we would run the poll exactly the same again, and over here, because I can do it more than once on here, there's an agreement question, and maybe we get some different outcomes this time. But this is really good giving the students that particular voice, helping them build confidence in terms of public speaking, that kind of thing, and also listening, helping them learn to listen to other people's points of view. These are all really important skills. Thank you very much for that. And again, you can see how that opinion has shifted since we've had that discussion. And if I wanted to, we could move that over there as well. That's such a useful thing, such a useful tool. And again, that flip chart page has already been created. It's in the library, as it were. Let's move on again to a new page. And I'm just going to do one more example of what I call ad hoc questions, because for me, ad hoc questioning it's such a strong usage. And you can just pick up the handsets. Okay, kids, what do you think about this? And again, what I've done is I found this particular page in the library down here under Maths Activities, Learner Response, I think it is, and I've done the same again, I think. So Math Starters and Activities, you get a whole load of these activities, I think, towards the end. You can see all the ones down there at the bottom. Go and explore. There's loads there. You just have to go and sort yourself out. So sorry, Janice, you're going to have to do this time again. Take the back control and close that window down for me. But what I've done this time, thank you, is in addition to this page, which I put here, I've gone onto the internet and found a shopping basket. Because I know my kids, they like to go shopping, particularly if it's for sweeties. But I've given them the shopping list this time, and this is great because this is applied maths and it's applied numeracy. And so, for example, I might say, because I don't know if you've looked at this particular resource before, but you've got what we call infinite coins here, which I can use, and I can say, how much have I got here, for example, and I could just do a quick ad hoc, and how much I've given them to go to the shops with. Just a point of view, if you're doing things like with money, you have to do it using, or you might think you want to use it using the 1, 2, 3, and you'd be forgiven for choosing that option. And yes, they could choose a 1, 2, 3 option. But if I chose the ABC option on the handsets, and probably what I should do, I'll do in a minute when I bring a picture of a handset up, you can actually put the pound symbol in as well, which is on the one of the symbols that you can use. So I'm asking them actually in this instance to put a pound symbol in and tell me how much money I have got out there. And it's a very simple way of using the handsets with resources that are already existing. And I'm just going to wait for one more answer till we get in that before we stop it. And there we go. I'm just going to stop it manually there. Otherwise, I could have waited for Isabella to answer. No, not on this occasion. Thank you. £1.70. But there's also a pound symbol. And if you want to use the symbols on the handset, you do need to ask it as a text question. But what I've got in here, let's just close that down so I can pull something out of my, there we go, I've got some healthy options here. See, I've got rather than going for chocolate, I've got some healthy bananas. And they cost 39p. Let's just move these out of the way for a bit. I want to ask my learners, okay, I've given you £1. How much change am I going to get from £1 if these cost 39p? Bingo, off you go. So, and again, I'm going to ask this time as a text questions, so they can text me the answer. They've got access to the numeric buttons, but they've also got access to the pound symbol as well. So I'd like to see a pound symbol in there, for example, or it could be a P symbol as well for pence. I don't mind. So it's obviously, if I've given them a pound, I'm going to get so many P back. So, and I'm going to give you 5 seconds to answer that, Stephen, because he's the only one that hasn't answered so far. And fingers on buzzers. Kids love this. 61p and something p. Okay, weren't sure, but 61p, so fantastic. Again, I haven't specified a correct answer, so I haven't said who's right, who's wrong. I've just wanted to get them using the handsets, which is all important. So, but if I wanted to remember, if I click, I can see who's answered what as a list, and maybe Stephen struggled a bit, or maybe it's a bit of finger error. I'm not sure, but we can ask some more. So, I think we maybe have to do some more work on maths here. Okay, so far we've looked at ad hoc questions. These are questions which we can just, without an awful lot of setting up, so to speak, but you can ask on the fly where you're not showing what the correct answer is, or you haven't specified a correct answer. Whether we use it to promote discussion, or just get ideas, or get the kids, so doing some general brainstorming. But now, moving forward, I'm more interested in some actual more rigorous assessment. I want to test their knowledge of certain things. So, and I've now moved over. I've got a maths hat on, and I don't know if you notice anything different, but if I go back a page, can you see on all the previous pages, these 2 buttons, I've been using this button, and this one's been grayed out. Now, if I move forward a page, can you now see that button is now highlighted, this play button? And all I have to do now is to press this button. And because I've set up a question previously, and I'll show you how I do that in a minute, it automatically will send to the students the question type on their handsets and just ask them to answer that. So I want to do some work on some timetables here. I want to see how confident they are with their times table, and also look, if you notice, I've actually preset the time as well. So, and this time, when we get the results back, do you notice that the handsets, the ones that got it right, appear in green, and those that didn't get it right, there's just standard blue. So only one of my 3 students knows their 8 or 7 times table, which I think I'm going to have to do some work on. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, paste that, just for I can refer back to a little bit later. Let's show you how we did that particular question. If I go to a brand new page, I'm going to go insert a new page to start with. A new page, finger trouble. New page. New page, blank page after current page. So blank page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert, click it. If I want to insert a question, I click on insert. I can also do it from over here. It's exactly the same. It doesn't really matter. Whoops, he says. Come on, you. If I click on that one, no, it's the wrong way around. Sorry, it's on my tool palette. I have it the different way around. So let's go back. There we go. It's that one. There's the main menu. Click insert over here. Insert questions. Also, I don't know if you notice, it's Control Q, and it brings me up literally something called a question manager, and you literally fill in the fields. So, for example, I would click on here. What is 7? And I go to just fill in my keyboard 7 times 8 and equals, wherever the equal sign is. Okay, put a question mark, and I'm looking for simply a new, and it says, well, what kind of question is it? Could be a multiple choice. No, it's simply a numeric question, so that's what I'm looking for. And if I tab across on my keyboard, I need to put the correct answer in so that it knows whether to turn green or not, and I know the correct answer is 56 on this occasion. And you can see on page 11 of 32, this is my flip chart name. It's numeric. If I scroll down here, I've got some other options. Now, if you're setting this up, it's always a good idea to replace the page content with a new design. And because otherwise the question won't appear on there, for example. So what I could do is just plain text, for example, because I'm just looking for plain text. And then once I've made my changes, I could then simply click apply and then press done. And then there you go, 7 times 8 equals that. And now can you see also that's there? It knows there's a question on that page. And when there's a question on that page, we don't have to touch this button anymore. We're not doing anything more to do with ad hoc. Oh no, it's just click that button and the answer comes in. And I've done another one in a good Blue Peter fashion. I've created another one here. How many grams are there in a kilogram? And again, this is multiple choice this time. And if I click that particular button, I can get my people to answer, my learners to answer, and again, I've got 20 questions, 20 seconds to answer this particular question. I want to see how strong they are on their units of measure, for example. And we're pretty confident on our units of measure. Fantastic, well done. I'm going to click on that, so I don't need to do too much testing on that one. Word to the wise, when you're doing prepared questions, if I go to questions, again, a couple of things you need to know. One is there's only one question per page, so just do the one question per page only. That's all we're doing at this stage. And if you're doing something like a multiple choice question, and you specify multiple choice here, and you specify multiple choice up there, and don't forget to specify which is the correct answer. You can see, I think my it's got a bit excited, this particular view. But you must replace the content with a new design. Okay, click on here and click that one, and it says, well, I can choose a particular template for multiple choice. There's two things you've got to be aware of, and because not all these templates are appropriate for your question. First of all, you have to see where it says question down here on this number, not this one down here. You have to make sure that, for example, that one, you have something that says question. If you don't, it won't show you the question, so the learners can't see what the actual question is. Also, the other thing to notice is, can you see this? I don't know how well you can see it. You'd see this better if it was probably a little bit enlarged on your own computer, but this says A is option A, option B, option C, and option D. You must have that there because, again, that actually shows you the particular options which you can see there. So can you see up here, I've got the options 10, 100,000, and 10,000. Correct answer is 1,000. You choose the right template. And again, with all of these, I would encourage you to test this out before you actually deliver it to in the lesson for the very first time, and you get that. Fantastic. So let's move on. And sometimes we can use prepared questions just to, how much do we know about this particular topic? So if you recall, 7 times 8 we were a bit shaky on, but units of measure we were quite strong on. So I'm going to do some work now with some times tables. And do you remember at the outset of this particular webinar, I said self-paced questions was at the heart of the system. This is where it gets really interesting. And this is the section on self-paced questions. And it's going to be a little bit of a whistle-top lightning tour, but as the good thing is about webinars, you can pause, you can go back, or you can rewind, you can go back, and you can also get in touch with me afterwards if you're still a little bit stuck as well, or Janice. There's plenty of help available. But self-questions are really very interesting. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you very quickly how you can set a set of self-paced questions up. Again, exactly the same process as before. We go to Insert, we go to Questions. Okay, and again, do you remember I get the same type of view? This time, because I want to do some times table testing, I'm going to go over to Question Generators, which is this tab over the top here, third tab I've clicked on here. And Question Generators is specifically for some, as it says, basic numeracy, times tables. It's really good for times tables. And I just simply want to do, it starts with the default 20 questions. I'm happy with that. It says, what is A plus B? Well, actually, I don't want plus. If I click on that, I can get out to times. It's going to select times for me. And it says, well, A is a number between 1 and 12. OK, that's fine. I'm going to leave that as is because I'm doing times tables. But this time, B, I'm going to specify that B is a number between, let's say, 8, let's do 8, and I'm going to change that to 9. By the way, you could have up to 99 questions to generate if you wanted to, if you were wondering how much you could do. Where B is a number between 8 and 9. And now I can click on Generate. And what that's going to very easily do, for some reason it went back to 12. Okay, so it's generated me 12 random questions on, I thought it was going to do 7s and 8s. Let's do it. Tell you what, let's do some more then. Okay, let's just do 7 times table as well, shall we? Okay, so 7. I can just click again and just generate another 12 questions on 7 times table as well. And they're all random questions, and it all automatically puts the correct answer in. So you don't have to do anything. We go back to Design View, click on Design View, and hey presto, there we go. There I have my 24 questions on 7 and 8 times table. They are all numeric questions, for example, and if I click on any one of them, you can see there's the question, there's the answer. I don't really have to do too much here. And it gets a little bit more complicated, a little bit more sophisticated, depending on how much you want to know and how much you want to get back. But I'm just going to start with the basics and build it up from there. I'm going to click on replace page with a new design, for example. I'll just click on that one, and that just you've got an option if you wanted to add what this particular one is, and we're just going to call it maybe times table, for example, which you could see there. But my mouse isn't allowing me to do this at the moment. It's because there we go. Click on there. Let's just call it times tables. Times tables. Let's just go. I'm just going to call it, what are we today? March 2nd. There we go. We always click apply, and then we always click done to save those particular changes that we've made. For example, in adding our new times table, if I click on that, oh, come on, please. There we go. Fantastic. So there's my table. Now, do you see, again, I've got an automatic start button there, automatic start button there. Now, if I start this button, what's going to happen is click OK, and this time we get a very different view. What's happening now, and I'm just going to allow my colleague Janice, using her 3 handsets up there, to alternate between the different students, for example. I'll just walk you through what's going on. Now, beforehand, do you remember when we were doing ad hoc questions? It was one question at a time, and as soon as the students answered that question, the results would appear instantaneously in a window on the page, which you could then paste directly into the flip chart page. Now what is happening, and what we're looking at right now, is this is a live feed, as opposed to almost, the response timeline, it's called, of the students as they're answering the questions. Now, normally, what you have to be slightly mindful of here is the fact that your students may have their heads buried or fenced over looking at the handset, because what they're doing, I can see, for example, George, he's already answered 4 questions. He's got that one wrong, for example, and if I move along a bit, he's on question 5 now. They've all got she's got question 3 wrong, and Stephen's got question 5 wrong as well, and they've struggled with that with a bit. If I hover over it, I can see what each question is, for example. But you may not want your students to be looking at this particular view or this window, as you just may want to be looking at it. And what you can do is the following, and this is really important to note. If you have a projector, you can freeze the projector. Okay, so what you would do probably is you probably drag this particular window when you start the quiz out of the way. You drag it down to the bottom. You then press freeze screen on your projector. If you have one of these brand new active panels, these touch screens, I know there's an option to do that as well. And once you've frozen the screen, all the students would see is the timetables page at the back. And what you can do is you could bring this back up and have a look at it again. You may be having an iPad or a tablet with you where you could carry that around on you, and you could see who's made what progress here. And you could select it by student, as up here we're looking at George's progress, or I could choose the entire class. I could choose to see, look at all the questions they've done, or only the ones they've got incorrect in the order they've answered. And you can see very quickly that how they built up a timeline. Okay, let's pause that there, and it asks me the question, do you want to save the partial results so far? Because do you remember there were about 24 questions, I think, on this particular times table test. They may not have got that far. We're just doing this for a bit of a demonstration. But I do want to save those results because I want to analyze them for later. I want to see how my learners have been getting on. And this is where things like feedback is going to be really important, intervention, 2 really, really, really critical, important words. So let me click on that and let me save those results. And I'm going to close that window particularly down there. I'm going to come back and have a look at those later. So let's go on and have another look. And this time I'm going to add a little bit more intro, make it a little bit more variable, these things, and I'm going to show you what I can do. On the handsets, you've got this particular button here which this arrow is pointing to. So one of the questions, or one of the issues teachers raise is, okay, what if I've got all, in every class you have students who have different abilities, with ranges of different abilities, from the very able to the not so able and everything else in between. And, they all work at their own paces and their own styles, and that's great. We've been able to do that. The fact that, and one of the reasons students love, or learners love, the self-paced mode is that the more able ones are able to power on, the less able ones don't feel they're holding the more able ones up, and everybody's happy. But you can add something else into the factor. Now, what we can do, we can allow students to start at their own place. So, for example, what we can do, we can bring levels into here. So we can do level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, where they get progressively harder. And we can allow, for example, the more able students to start at level 2. Let me show you what I mean, because this is where it starts to get important. And as I said, feedback is essential, and feedback, the research shows that one of the biggest ways to improve learning or to progress learning is instantaneous feedback. Time and time again, studies have been taken, and feedback is essential, which is why the expression handsets really are an important tool in helping teachers identify who's got it, who hasn't got it, and what they as the teacher are going to do about it in terms of intervention. And what we can do now is we can give some feedback directly to the handset that the learners have got. Firstly, to tell them whether they're correct or not. And again, you can edit this field. You don't have to be correct. You can say, well done, well, hey, keep going. Any motivational words are great. Or if they haven't got it right, the kind of things that they need to, or guides or rules or points of reference they need to be thinking about to get the next one right, for example. And I'll show you what I mean by this one. Okay, so if I want to, I've got some questions on this page. How can I tell? Do you remember this one's highlighted here, that green play button? So if I wanted to view those questions, I could either go directly to insert questions if I wanted to, or I could click on edit and questions on current page. And I'm just going to see what questions I've got here. Now, what I've done here in my Blue Peter fashion, I have already created 12 questions, and you know by now hopefully how to create a question. And all I've done, rather than go this time onto maybe question generators, I've maybe created one at a time. And the learning objective, I think, was my 10s and my 100s. If I just close that down, I should have actually said, you know, what we're getting. Yeah, learning objective, multiplying by 10 or 100. That's the theme of the assessment or the quiz or the lesson. Questions on current page, that's what I'm editing. So 20 times 10, text question. And I'm going to walk you through why I've done what I've done, because I think it's quite important here. So this time I've chosen a text question and not a numeric question. Why? Because quite simply, I want to put some feedback on and give some feedback to the students as to how they're getting on. Do you remember on the previous page when they got it right, say correct, and if they got it wrong, it came out with incorrect and a rule to that. And in order to give the learner feedback on the handset, you have to change the question type to a text question. Okay, that is important. So what I've done is I've got the question here: 20 times 10 equals correct answer 200. And then what I've done is to provide feedback. I've put in something. Can you see that? A double semicolon, semicolon, semicolon. And that allows, or that notifies the system to say that, okay, if they get it right, bingo, they get it right. But it also separates the next field to say, move the digits one place to the left. That's the feedback they're going to get if I'm going to get it wrong. But how do we make that happen? Because we have to do something else here. If I scroll down here, and if I scroll down a bit more, you can see, for example, at the moment, I've got level 1. I've also got levels, because they're all automatically leveled to level 1. But we can change things to level 2, for example, and I'll show you how we do that. If I wanted to add some more questions here, for example, if I click on here, and I'm going to do what's 1,000 times 1,000, and I just do that. Okay, it's going to be a text question. That's text, and I'm going to say, actually, you're a level 3. Just click on that level 3, and I think that 1,000 times 1,000 is, I don't know my math actually, but I'm sure somebody will help me. It's probably 100,000, I think, isn't it? It's probably moved 3 places to the left, isn't it? Something like that. So it is probably 1 million actually. So it's called one. There we go. 1 million. And we're just going to throw that in. 100,000 because I don't want to do this for that. 100,000. Oh, I don't have to put the comma there. It's because they might not put a comma in real life. But I can now put some feedback in, for example, some appropriate feedback. Like I say, for example, whatever feedback I want to do, move the digits so many places to the left. Okay. And we'll just leave that one there. But if I wanted to go down to test feedback properties, this is where it gets interesting. So at the moment, by default, those are left blank. So, for example, if I do answer correct is, if I check that box, it says the answer it'll appear answer correct. That was what will appear on the handset. If I check this box here, it'll say, no, the correct answer is percentage answer. What does that mean? That's a bit strange, that, isn't it? Well, what that means is it says if you get the answer incorrect, in other words, what the computer does, it looks to see if you've got, if I go back to this one here, it looks to see if you've got the 200 in the correct answer. But if you haven't got 200, it'll automatically default to this thing here, the correct answer is percentage answer. And what it says is, okay, if you haven't got 200, I'm going to give you this other text here, move the digit however many places to the left, for example. And if let's just change that question again. So I'm just going to do this time. Let's just make it not so hard, but let's say 75 times 100. I just wanted to show you. There you go. So level 3, and no, we're going to make it level 2 because it's still the same kind of thing. There we go, and it is 10,500. Okay, I think we probably got that already, but tell you what, I know we have got that, haven't we? So if I choose another one instead, there we go. I think we've got that question's already appeared. So if I did this time 44, and let's just go change that again up there. Click on that. 4400. Double semicolon, move the digit 2 places to the left, or is it 3 places? That's probably 3 places at this time, isn't it, actually, because I've probably moved on from there. So if I go to there, I could say 2 places is fine. So there we go, so on and so forth. Okay, or whatever feedback is appropriate. I'm not being too technical about what the answer should be in that sense, but you'll know what the answer should be. So that's where you change the feedback, or edit the feedback. A, answer correct, B, answer incorrect, and that's under something called test feedback properties. Okay, there you go, test feedback properties. If I wanted to, at the moment, what we can do is we can randomize. If I change that, I could randomize the first level, or I don't have to randomize the second level. Then if I wanted to, instead of that, I could say, well, actually, I'm going to allow the students to navigate their own question set. And what that does this time, that changes what you're allowing, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to set the order in which you answer the questions, you can allow the students to navigate the question set themselves. Do you remember that button we pointed to on a previous screen which said they could start at a certain level? Well, that's what I'm going to say to George, who's pretty close. I know he's in his in the top set for maths, or the top table for maths. I'm going to say, George, you can start at level 2, and he would. And so as soon as I press apply and I press done now, for example, he says that we'll go on apply and press done to save those changes, and done. There we go. And I'm going to press that again. There we go, there's my thing. So this time George presses the middle button on the left. He can then scroll to, I think it's question 13, which is the level 2 questions. While Isabel and Stephen, they're probably going to start at level 1. And this time, if they get it right, they'll get a correct answer, do you remember? And if they get it wrong, they'll get the feedback coming onto their handset. So, again, remember to freeze projector at this point, and so to move this particular slide out of the way so you haven't got students benchmarking each other or comparing each other to see how they're getting on, because you can move that out of the way. And I can see, for example, they've all answered question 1, for example, and there we go, question 2, etc., etc., and we can go through that. And oh, he's got question 2 wrong. Okay, he's done that incorrect. Or maybe George, maybe. And this is the good thing, is because you find out, and this is the whole point of the self-paced questioning and just using the expression handsets per se, is you find out what your students are thinking, and this is the key to the system is that you get an insight, because do you know what happens, particularly in primary, if they use the whiteboards on the floor, do you know what they do? They copy each other, don't they? They see what each other's written, whereas they can't do it with this one. And also, if you randomize the questions, we have the option to randomize the questions. So, Isabella may not get the questions in the same order as George, for example. That makes it really hard to copy and cheat. But the point is, they are now they've got nowhere to hide, and it's a bit like the teacher's on their shoulder, and this is what students often say, is the teacher's on their shoulder. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pause it there, stop it there. I'm going to save those results, say, yep, yes please, thank you very much. And I am going to then close this particular slide down, he says, or doesn't want to close down. I think, Janice, you might have to close that one for me if you don't mind, please. Just protect that particular window. It's just not playing ball. Thank you very much. Just close it down. Thank you. And let's go on to another thing. And I just want to show you also one more self-paced question set, the fact that we can use them with SPAG and literacy as well, not just for maths. We can use this for literacy. And I'm going to show you something I created a little bit earlier. The learning objective in this one is text the verb in the sentence. Okay, well, and as you can see, the questions have already been created. You can see my little yellow thing, my green button, play button's ready to go here. And I'm just going to show you what the questions look like so you can see for yourself. And if I go to edit questions on current page, I have got the fox ran over the hill. So I want the students to text in the verb in that sentence, which obviously is the word ran. And I can see that. And again, can you see my correct answer here? If I just get my mouse, so I put the correct answer is ran. I've then separated it by 2 semicolons. And if they didn't get the word ran correct, oh, by the way, I need them to mark it case sensitively, not with a capital R, because this is a SPAG test. If they didn't get that word right, they got another word, they would get this feedback. Remember, verbs are doing words or facts or given statements, like, for example, I am a boy or something like that, or given condition, or I am old, or something. That's what I mean by that. So this is maybe built on some of the rules that they learned earlier in their class. And again, we've got some at level 1 and as well as some at level 2. And so what I'm going to do here is, if I scroll down a bit, I can see at the moment some of these are randomized. So no, let's randomize them, because I think there's a bit of cheating, or there's a little bit of collusion going on at the back of class at the moment. So I'm going to randomize level 1 questions, which are the first 4 questions, but not level 2 questions. So this means that they're going to get them in a different order. So, they may get question 4 first before they get question 1, for example. I'm going to allow them to retry incorrect answers if they didn't get it right the first time. And let's go back to test feedback properties as well. There we go, test feedback properties, click on that. And again, that's checked. If they get it right, they get it correct. Let's change it to, well, hey, well done, or well done. Well done, keep going. Again, this is all editable, he says. Editable, keep going. Correct answer. Answer incorrect, they'll get the feedback that's in the correct answer field, and which is up there. I'm happy with the rest of that. Let's click apply. Let's click done to save those changes. With all of these, I would recommend, when you're having a go, just, set something up, do a little test, get a couple of devices, and then I'm just going to click, off we go. And this time, the questions are going to appear at random on the handset, for example. So George make a question. So George, I think it looks like he's got question 4. So he started with question 4, for example. The fans chanted their favourite songs. Was that one? Stephen's got question 2. So Stephen maybe sat next to George, and Isabella, she's got a different question, but it's not going to help them copying each other's devices, because they're all on a different question at the same time. Again, I can see all this, which is quite good. When we go on to a different level, it changes colour. I can see how the entire class is doing if I wanted to very quickly, only the incorrect ones. So far George has got 2 correct, but Isabella's got 1 wrong there. You see, okay, so it's fascinating. And this will start to get more interesting when we start to analyze these results, because so far with all of these self-paced questions, all we're able to do is set the quiz. And all I've done is set the quiz, and I'm just going to stop the quiz there. We actually haven't viewed or analyzed any of the results yet, but now we're going to do that. It says, do you want to save the partial results? You bet you do. I want to do that. So I'm just to save the partial results there. It's not letting me close that down. Janice, would you mind doing the honors, please, idea, and just grabbing that and closing that down for me? Thank you very much. So I've got quite a few results here. and we need to do some analysis. And what I'm going to show you, while I move on to the next page, he says, yeah, feedback really essential. So this is the feedback the student would see on the device. The correct answer is rain. Remember, verbs are doing words and relate directly back to the subject of the sentence, or whatever feedback you think might be appropriate. Okay, the results browser. What's the results browser? Let's have a look at that, and I'll show you what I mean. So if you go to view, sometimes you may have it just popping over here automatically. It just sometimes hides in the left-hand corner, but if in case you mouse over here, nothing appears, and I want to start to analyze my results here, now just go to view and go to browsers. By the way, what I would do is, and I'll talk about this in a minute, is I put a shortcut to any favorite buttons that I use all the time in my tool palette. So because I always have this mantra that 2 clicks is too many. So go to my voting browser, which is where I can change things. Can you see there's my 3 students there? They're using ActivExpression. Results browser is down towards the bottom here. And if I click and expand that, can you see now, what it does is every time you ask a question, on a flip chart page, it kind of stores the results in here. So, for example, March the 2nd, 2012-24 was the first question answered, maybe. All the way through to, who's agreement question 1253, there's agreement question 1254, and I've got some more questions here, times tables. Can you see all of these? All these are answers. So, for example, maybe retrospectively, I wanted to go back and see who answered what again, how many grams are there in a kilogram, who answered what. I can go back and retrospectively look at these just in case I didn't save them. But you've got this really, really important button here called Export to Excel. Can you see that mouse over there? Now, if I was you, and you're going to use this a lot, I would go into my settings, which I'm not going to show you how to do today. This is for another time. I go to my settings and actually go and save that command and put it in my tool palette, because I've had to click quite a few times to get to this stage. So if I click to export to Excel, it's going to take all the results. I'm going to call it now webinar quiz March, so we know what we're talking about. And I'm going to save it on the desktop, so just going to make it easier to find. And what it's going to do is going to take all the questions and all the answers that we've answered so far in this webinar, from the ad hoc ones to the prepared ones to the self-paced ones. And there we go. So, and straight away, can we make that a little bit bigger? I don't know how we can or not. It says restore down. Okay, but you can make it bigger. You've got the option to do that, I'm sure. Now, let's have a look at this. You can see George, Isabella, and Stephen. They're my 3 token students. Usually the questions would be on the left-hand side here. Now, the reason I haven't got any questions on the side here to begin with is when you ask an ad hoc question, the system cannot know what that question was, because you could have just verbally delivered that question. They could just got on their handsets and give you any old answer, and there's no way of knowing what that question was. The only time where you get the questions printed on the side here is where it's a confidence or an agreement one, or where we get prepared and self-paced questions. So do you remember 7 times 8? And 2 people got it wrong. Okay, 1 person got it right. I can see start over here. And look, here are my times tables questions. So how did we do on times tables? And some persons got that wrong a couple of times, haven't they? We both made a bit of a mistake there as well. Some persons got that one wrong there, okay. But you know what? They did okay here. And here's my test title, okay. And it looks we've got like a bit of a spell check here. I can see they've got the right idea, but I was asking for it correctly spelled. It is a SPAG test, so it's not just grammar, it's actually correct spelling as well I'm looking for as well, and that's why it's marked that as incorrect. But suddenly I've got now a profile of every single student answer, and this is a summary tab down here, but we could look at it by question, we could look at it by student, or we could look at it by question page, for example. And you know what? Not just useful for teachers or tutors or trainers, but you know what? When Ofsted come knocking on your door and ask you, how well are your students doing? What kind of progress are they making? You can show them this. Fantastic for senior leadership teams, fantastic for external auditors. And when they ask you to show you or demonstrate or show the evidence, show me the evidence, what evidence have you got for this? Here's your evidence. This is your evidence, for example. And so this is fantastic. Get off my back, Ofsted, in other words. So if I just go back to your test title here, and if I just go, let's bring that one up again. You could also got the option, you've got a print button here, for example. Janice, you might need to take over here, because, oh, no, yeah. So if you could just click on the print button for me, please, because you've also got the option to export to PDF. Do you see there's export to PDF here on the right-hand side? Thank you very much. You can also take exactly the same results and print it to a PDF. So fantastic for parents' evenings, for example, if you want to show the kind of progress that that learner is making. And the world can read PDF, can't we? Because it's all things kind of free. And again, they can stick it in their books to show what kind of progress they're making as well. Really, really, really useful. So, one final thing. It's been a bit of a mammoth webinar so far, but we are getting towards the final furlong. I promise you, I've got one more thing to share with you, which I think you'll find really, really interesting. So far, when we've been analyzing results, we've been using Excel spreadsheets to do that. And Excel is great. You know, not everybody likes Excel, but it's Microsoft. It does what it says. But there is something else I'm going to show you, and the best way to explain this is, well, if you think Excel is kind of interesting, this Excel for me shows you the tip of the iceberg. This particular piece of software shows you everything underneath the waterline, the 8/9 of the iceberg, so to speak. I'm going to call it getting the inside story. And to do this, I'm going to come out of here, and I'm going to show you my desktop now, for example, and I am going to. Do I need to share my desktop with you? How easily can we do this? What do I need to do to share the desktop? I'm now the presenter. Thank you very much. So if I go back to what I'm looking for, and let's just come out of here. So I think you hopefully should be looking at my desktop now. Let me know if you're not looking at my desktop, please, Janice. But you should be looking at my desktop, and yeah, I think I'm doing that. So I've got a piece of software called Inside.
Hi, John. We're not looking at your desktop. You need to go up to Share and share your desktop.
Thank you very much. So, beg your pardon. Share my screen. Thank you very much for that, Jan. For that technical intervention. There you go. So hopefully you'll be seeing my desktop at any point in particular time. Okay, fantastic. So we're now showing my desktop. Wonderful. Okay. So share my desktop. I've got a piece of software called Inside. Okay, and Inside is basically a piece of software, very simple, very easy to use, that has been designed specifically with ActivExpression in mind and analyzing self-paced results. Let me show you what I mean. So I've created here and saved on my desktop a flip chart that has got some results in a set of a self-paced test. It's called Peel Apart List of Words. All I have to do is simply pick up that and drop it into Inside, and it's going to open up like this. Okay, and here's my list of results. So this is an alternative to analyzing results in Excel. This is a piece of software called Inside. I'm not connected to them in any way, but I found this piece of software. It's really interesting. So I'm just going to move Janice over to there a bit. So as you can see, you've got a list of here of users or learners down the left-hand side, and they've been taking a test. I got at least 2 levels to the test. You can see they've got some wrong and some right, and that just gives me an overall view. The much better view is if we actually look, and this is a summary view, but if I go to results and click on results, this starts to get more interesting. So can you see questions 1 to questions 12? That is my level 1. Okay, up to there. And here's the summary. What does this mean? Summary 44, 120. These are all the total number of attempts on that particular question. So, for example, and if I mouse over that number, it tells me what the question was. So you can see straight away, question 2 has caused students the most problems. Question 2, what was question 2? It was the 2 events occurred at the same time. They happened simultaneously. So it's a spelling test. They have to spell the words simultaneously. And they really struggle with that, particularly poor Ellie here. She's got that wrong 6 times. And if I click on that, this jumps up and it just shows me exactly who said what. Okay. And each time they get it wrong, they get a different color chart. So by the 3rd time they get it wrong, it just stays red until they get it right, and it turns eventually green. So you can see simultaneously cause them an enormous headache, for example. And let's just go back a level and have a look at that again. And also 98, that was a pretty difficult question. Outline against the light is a silhouette is the word I'm looking for, and that's how we spell the word silhouette. That's the correct answer. Again, you see it caused people quite a few problems there. And very quickly I can see who's got what right, who's got what wrong. And if I look at Ellie's score, for example, I can just look at individually Ellie to see how she got on her particular test and all her answers. And she found some of those later ones a little bit easier, but she really struggled in the first half of that test. And again, you can see scores over here. So the score on this particular one was nearly 40, or the overall average score. And it automatically defaults the person, the most challenged person at the top, for example. We can change that score around if I wanted to. I could reverse that score, so rather than Ellie, we could have it with the top performer one instead, which is obviously Georgia and Tony in this case. But also, so hopefully it should be fairly self-evident that the ones in red are the incorrect ones, the ones in green are the correct ones. But I've got some ones in grey as well over here. What does that mean? And these are level 3. And if I click, for example, on 15, and I click on that, it says write a sentence using the word humiliation. And this is fantastic for modelling, if you're wanting to model some good work. And the reason it's in grey is because, you know, you cannot put in the correct answer field, or you cannot anticipate what the student's going to write. But what you have got here is 15 examples, or 15 sentences of the word humiliation used in context. And again, we could do a print screen. You can't save this as a file in any way, shape or form. You can do a print screen or copy it and save it and put it in a Word document and save it like that, which is quite useful. But where it also starts to get very interesting, and this is what I'm going to end on, because it's a great little tool, and you can use it for 3 or 4 minutes at the end of a lesson just to see who's done what. But this is one of the strongest buttons here. Here's where it says quintiles here. Watch what's going to happen next. I'm going to click on the word groups, and it splits them into 5 groups according to performance. Okay, and you can see quintile 1 is the highest performing one. They've got average score of 58, quintile 2 49, so on and so forth. And suddenly, but if I can see who's in what quintile. If I now click on quintile and go to my 4th quintile, this is the 4th performing quintile. That, ladies and gents, is my intervention group. That is where I'm going to spend some time, because those are the ones that are really struggling with that particular test. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them some support and encouragement. I can see exactly who they are. I can see exactly what they've answered. So if I click on Zoe, for example, I can see all of Zoe's answered. I could print that off if I wanted to. We could have a look at that. And where it starts to get interesting is, okay, this test was taken on this time and this date. If I ran this test again, maybe in 3 or 4 weeks' time, or 3 or 4 weeks later, beyond the second test, and did exactly the same thing and saved them and viewed them in the software called Inside, it would show down here. And what I can then start to do is benchmark performance between separate test dates and look at how students have got on and moved on from that as well. So there you go. What I'm going to do is ungroup that like that, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of here. I'm probably going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to go back to the Janice's screen up in Edinburgh there, and she's going to go back to the thing, because I know some people will have some questions about Inside, you know, where can I find it, for example, that kind of thing. So if we can get up, there we go. There we go. Let's just go forward to screen. So Inside, the URL is http, I think it's inside.learningclip.co.uk/buy/download. It gives you a 30-day trial. You can download a free trial of Inside, and you can use it for 30 days. I'm told by Learning Club, I think it's about £50 per classroom per year or something on that level, so it's not a lot of money. And you know, I have found it, and the teachers who I've showed it to have found it really, really interesting piece of software. Anyway, I think that is a good place to pause. I'm just going to show you a little bit about myself in terms of my contact details. That's me up there. You can get in touch with me via email. There's my web address as well. I'm on Twitter, and I've got a telephone and a mobile number there if you want to ask any questions or get in touch about anything that we've discussed in this webinar today. But hopefully that will have been very useful for you. I'll show you the power of this great tool called ActivExpression, how you can ask questions in all sorts of different ways, ad hoc, prepared, self-paced, how there are all sorts of different question types, from your text questions to your multiple choice and just general discussion questions, but also how you can just find out what your students are thinking and run a self-paced test where you can give them individual feedback. You can start them at different levels if they're for the more able ones and for the less able ones. You can randomize the questions to stop them copying each other. And it is very much, there's been one or two teachers have come back and said for the students they think it's like having a teacher on their shoulder. And again, it's that whole theme, or that whole idea that feedback is essential. Okay, that's enough from me, I think. I'm now going to hand back to Janice just to conclude.
Thank you very much, John. That was brilliant. Loads of information there for people to take in. Just to finish off, as we always do, remember that there is a lot of support on Promethean Planet. And in fact, if you look under the Resources tab at the very top, we do have a section devoted to classroom assessment resources. So I do recommend that you have a look there for finding out how to do some of the things that John has shown you today. So once again, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope to see you on our next webinar.